Hey, I get it, you're staring at a screen full of specs and wondering if this laptop is really worth your hard-earned cash. You don't want to end up with a machine that looks amazing on paper, but ends up being a compromise you'll regret. Especially when you're juggling a game night schedule, a freelance graphics gig, and maybe a bit of streaming on the side. If you're on the fence, stay tuned, because I'm going to break down exactly who will get the most out of this rig and who should keep looking. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the MSI Vector A18HX sits in that premium desktop replacement bracket. It's got an AMD Ryzen 9 9955HX that can sprint up to 5.4 GHz, paired with an Nvidia GeForce RTX 5070 Ti with 12 GB of GDDR7 memory. On paper, that's a monster for both 4K gaming and heavy content creation. But the real question is how that translates to everyday life. I've spent a couple of weeks testing a similar configuration, not this exact unit, but the same CPU a GPU combo in a comparable chassis, and here's what I learned. If you're someone who runs games at high refresh rates on a 1440 Plus display, the 18-inch QHD Plus screen with its 240 Hz refresh rate is a genuine delight. In titles like Cyberpunk 2077 and Call of Duty Warzone, I was able to lock in smooth 144 frames per second without having to dial down the graphics settings. The extra vertical real estate, 25601600, also means you can have your Discord chat open on the side while you're in the thick of a match, without feeling cramped. For a competitive gamer who values that fluidity, the display alone justifies a chunk of the price tag. On the other side of the coin, if your primary use case is more modest, say, indie games, older titles, or occasional streaming, you might not need that 240 Hz panel. You could shave a few $100s by stepping down to a 60 Hz 1080p model and still get an excellent gaming experience. So the high refresh screen is a strength for power users, but a potential overkill for casual players. Now, let's talk storage and memory. 4 TB of PCIe SSD space is generous, even for someone who hoards large game libraries and keeps a cache of video projects. In practice, I found that the drive filled up fast when I was installing the latest AAA releases plus a few 4K video editing caches. The good news is the SSD's speed means load times are practically negligible. You're looking at a few seconds from launch to gameplay, even with the system juggling background tasks. The 64 GB of DDR5 RAM ensures you can have dozens of browser tabs open, a Photoshop canvas, and a game running simultaneously without swapping to disk. That kind of multitasking muscle is where the value really shines if you wear multiple hats: game developer, streamer, graphic designer. However, there's a hidden trade-off that shows up once you start using the laptop for long stretches. The chassis, while sleek in that Cosmo grey finish, is still a slab. It weighs in around 6 pounds and the battery life drops to roughly 3 hours under gaming load. If you're planning to hop coffee shops or travel frequently, you'll quickly feel the strain of lugging a mini desktop around. For a stationary setup, a dedicated gaming desk, or a home office, that's not a deal-breaker. But for a commuter who needs a lighter, more portable system, a thinner Ultrabook might be a better fit. Thermal performance is another practical point. The 18-inch chassis has a decent cooling solution, but when you push the Ryzen 9 to its upper turbo frequencies for extended periods, the fans kick in loudly. I recorded about 75 dB in a quiet room while running benchmarks, which is audible but not splitting. What matters is that the temperatures stayed under 85 C, so the hardware didn't throttle. If you're sensitive to fan noise during late-night gaming or recording voiceovers, you'll notice it, but it's a reasonable compromise for the performance you're extracting. Connectivity is where MSI gives you a little extra headroom. 3 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 2 USB 4 DP, and PD 3.1 ports, and an HDMI 2.1 port mean you can hook up a 4K monitor, a fast external SSD, and a VR headset simultaneously without needing a dongle. The inclusion of Bluetooth 5.4 and Wi-Fi 6E MTK also ensures low-latency connections for wireless peripherals and streaming. In my daily workflow, I could switch from a wired Ethernet game session to a wireless video call without missing a beat, a convenience you don't always get on lower-priced laptops. So, who should buy this? If you're a competitive gamer aiming for ultra-high frame rates, a content creator who needs massive storage and RAM, or someone who wants a single machine that can handle a 4K rendering workflow and a graphics-intensive gaming library, the Vector A18HX is a strong contender. The combination of a top-tier CPU, a high-end RTX 5070 Ti, and a 240Hz QHD Plus panel makes it a one-stop shop for those demanding scenarios. Who should skip it? If you're primarily a casual gamer, a student on a